For decades, one man has quietly been the driving force behind the Republican Party. He built a lobbying empire too big to be ignored in the Beltway. And in recent years, he has become famous for what many call his tax purity pledge, which 96% of all Republicans sign. Anyone who strays from the pledge can count on feeling the wrath of Grover Norquist during their re-election. But taxes are the least of the concerns surrounding Norquist. His alarming ties with groups hostile to America, who seek to destroy it from the inside out. Those are the things that should worry every American. Tomorrow, we let the man speak for himself. An interview you won't want to miss. But tonight, the facts. Grover's connections. Now. Hello, America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck program and to The Blaze. This is the network that you are building. Tonight is a very important show, as is tomorrow night, when Grover Norquist will be joining us here on the set. There are no rules to that interview. We have made it very clear. I'm not out to get anybody. I just would like an answer to a few things that have been going around for a very, very long time, and he's the only one with an answer. Anytime anybody tries to ask him, they always are just shouted down that they are racist. That doesn't cut it here. There are many who claim that Grover Norquist is really kind of the right's version of George Soros without all the money. He is really a power player who has managed to use his influence to evade any real scrutiny over his dangerous connections. That's why tonight and tomorrow's show are necessary. Politicians listen to him. Many obey him. He has a long list of connections with radical Islamic organizations and, in some cases, actual terrorists. Others, not just Frank Gaffney, who was on my program, radio program, and we're not including Frank Gaffney on this program tonight because we went and did our own homework. We wanted to find out ourselves. We called people ourselves. We did our own homework. There's a lot of questions. People have been ringing the warning bell for quite some time. And honestly, I used to do a bit on radio back in the Bush days because I didn't even know who Grover Norquist was. And I was like, oh, yeah, Super Grover. Used to do that all the time. I mocked the claims. But where there's smoke, there's usually fire, and we decided to look into it ourselves. We did a couple of years ago, but it didn't seem as pressing then. As we look into it here lately, you're about to see the facts from that research, and you tell me if this is a pressing issue or not. Nobody else in the media is willing to take this seriously. But I will tell you, our sources are not only named sources that we will tell you about. They are the sources of the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, The Nation in some cases, MSNBC in some cases. Tonight we're going to lay out the facts and the claims. I want you to understand, and I know Grover is watching tonight, this show is not personal. I don't know the man at all. I'm not going to try to figure out why he's doing this. I don't know. The only thing I used to know about him was he's great on low taxes. He believes in small government and the free market. I'm good with that. I don't like the fact that he's also on board with immigration reform and amnesty. But those are political opinions. Those are policy differences. I'm not going to go and do a whole show like this about policy differences. This is about national security. This is a danger to you, your family, and the republic. If you saw the route last week, you know that all violent jihad stems today from the Muslim Brotherhood. No matter what the Obama administration is saying, you know the truth about the Muslim Brotherhood. In 2012, we did a Blaze documentary reporting on something called The Project. It featured documents that were uncovered in an FBI raid of the Holy Land Foundation. They were plans to destroy the civilization of America. How? By using Muslim Brotherhood front groups and building secret leadership right here on American soil in the form of a series of front organizations for the Brotherhood, including ISNA, CARE, the Muslim American Society, the American Muslim Council, just to name a few. And then they were going to try to find politicians and influencers to be able to influence our culture, our government, and our society. It's happening, whether we like to admit it or not. For a limited time, we're going to make this documentary available on demand at theblaze.com/theproject for free. You'll be able to watch that. It's really important that you understand that and the next two shows. Also, we are going to re-air that program this Friday from 8 to 11. I suggest that you have your friends and neighbors watch that program. Also, watch this program and tomorrow night's episode with Grover Norquist. One of the problems with this is there's a lot of names and different organizations, and just like it was difficult to talk to you about Soros or the Tides Foundation, this is difficult. We have to go to the chalkboard for this, because the more buffers you put in place, the more circuitous routes you use, the messier it all gets, and it's hard to follow some of the trails. The connections go much, much deeper than we're able to show you in a single hour. But I think we have enough here for you to say, there's something very bad I need to hear from Grover Norquist himself. So let's start at the chalkboard with, who is this guy? Well, first of all, we know that he's a Harvard grad. He's really, really quite brilliant. He's politically minded, wanted to be in politics since he was a youth. Even though he believes in the small business and the free market, he has no private sector experience at all. And he was the co-architect of the Bush wins. He led Muslim outreach after 9/11 with Bush. He has weekly D.C. meetings with the top conservatives because he wields an awful lot of power. He is very, very influential. He also founded something called the American Tax Reform Institute in 1985. This is where you get the pledge, that tax pledge that is signed by most Republicans. He is the guy who has really bulldozed and helped get George W. Bush elected in 1999, and he is big on outreach. Now, what has he done? Well, he is extremely influential in the GOP circles, and the important thing is to know where the money goes, so does Norquist. With the cost of winning elections skyrocketing, it makes him extremely important. So people play ball with him. So what has he created? Well, we know he's created this foundation, and this is really important. About 90% of all Republicans sign his tax pledge, and it's a good thing. But he's also created this, the Islamic Institute, which is trying to support the free market within Islam. That's a good goal, until you start to see how this thing has come together. If this was really about the free market, and perhaps it is, you have to be the judge. I find it very difficult, and I think in the next 15 minutes, you're going to find it very difficult to believe. But if this was really about the free market over in the Middle East, that's a fantastic goal. There's nothing wrong with that. But then we get to his friends, the people he trusts. Now, first on the list, Karl Rove. Karl Rove gave him $26 million to his tax organization in 2012, and here it is, for something called social welfare. $26 million from Karl Rove and the Koch brothers. The other donor, the Koch brothers, they are the primary funders of Norquist's budget for this. Okay. Is that a good thing? Sure. All right, whatever. Because even if you are on the left and you want really high taxes, there's nothing seemingly nefarious going on here. Okay. Because of this, he holds those high-profile conservative groups in his hands, and he threatens his power to campaign against anybody who doesn't play by his rules. But what other alliances is he making? Let me show you some of the people that he's been working with and crossing paths with. This guy is extremely disturbing. Alamoudi, you might have heard his name before. He was once held up as a moderate Muslim. He founded the Islamic Society of Boston Mosque in 1981, and that is the mosque, I don't think I have, yeah, that is the mosque that these guys came from. You know, the radical marathon bombers. In 1993, after the World Trade Center bombing, he campaigned on behalf of Mohammed Salameh, who was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. In 1994, al-Moudi also denied that he was a terrorist, that Hamas was a terrorist organization. I want you to watch this.
I am sure that the United States of America and Israel will come to terms with Hamas. What I don't agree with you, that you show these names, Muhammad this, and then you say, these people were training people to do fire bombs, to train for this, and you don't show any of that evidence.
Mr. al-Moudi, is Hamas a terrorist group?
No, it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's not a terrorist group. 2 years later, he was caught talking about the destruction of America. Watch.
And I think if we are outside this country, we can say, oh, Allah destroy America. But once we are here, our mission in this country is to change it. You can be violent anywhere else but in America.
Got it? So once you're here, you can't say those things. He declared support for radical Hamas leader Marzouk, saying, and I quote, "I have known Musa Abu Marzouk before, and I really consider him to be among some of the best people in the Islamic movement." Feds caught him expressing frustration that no Americans died in 1998 in the U.S. Embassy bombing in Kenya. He recommended more operations be conducted there. In 2000, he stood across from the White House voicing support for terrorist organizations Hamas and Hezbollah. Watch.
I have been labeled by the media in New York to be a supporter of Hamas. Anybody support this Hamas here? Anybody is a supporter of Hamas here? Anybody is a supporter of Hamas here? Hear that, Bill Clinton. We are all supporters of Hamas. Allahu Akbar.
Allah Akbar.
I wish they added that I'm also a supporter of Hezbollah. Anybody supports Hezbollah here? Anybody supports Hezbollah here? Takbir! Takbir!
Got it? This guy was finally arrested at Heathrow Airport with $340,000 in cash that was given to him by Muammar Gaddafi. The plot involved al-Qaeda operatives. He was a senior al-Qaeda financier. He funneled at least $1 million directly to al-Qaeda. He was sentenced in 2004. He's serving a 23-year prison sentence for terrorist fundraising related to the plan to assassinate the Saudi Crown Prince Abdullah. So, people he trusts. Al-Moudi. You'll see the connections as we go on. Now, the next one on the board is Khalid Safuri. Who is that? Well, he is Al-Moudi's right-hand man. He was a deputy at the American Muslim Council, one of the Brotherhood front organizations. He was founder of the Islamic Institute. He was very influential in the Bush administration. He led talks with the administration in opposition of Operation Green Quest, which we'll talk a little bit about later. That was basically trying to go get the front groups. He didn't want that to happen. Karl Rove tapped him for Muslim outreach. He voiced displeasure after the decision to shut down the Holy Land Foundation for funding Hamas. So after the trial, and they were proven to be a terrorist front group, he was upset at that decision. Then we go to Sami Al-Arian. I think everybody pretty much knows who he is. Former member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Former professor at USF. Campaigned against secret evidence method. He was caught soliciting donations for a Palestinian terrorist to kill an Israeli Jew. He paid respects to, quote, the March of the Martyrs and to the river of blood that gushes forth and does not extinguish. I don't know about you, but I want to hang out with him. He also said, let us damn America to death. Watch this. Let us damn America, let us damn Israel, let us damn their allies until death. Why do we stop? He was convicted of funding Palestinian Islamic Jihad. He has been sentenced to 57 months in prison. So the right-hand man also in jail. People that Grover Norquist trusts. Next guy on the list that we have, Sami Al-Arian. This one is Jamal al-Barzinji. He is the founder, the founding father. He's the George Washington of the Muslim Brotherhood of the U.S. He played a crucial role in creating and organizing the web of Brotherhood front groups that followed ISNA, Muslim American Society, IIIT. He founded the Radical Mosque in Virginia. He's known for ties to Islamic terrorists from Hamas to Al-Qaeda. He's officer of SAR Foundation, which is suspected of funding terrorist groups. Then we go to Suhail Khan. Suhail Khan is probably the cleanest of Grover Norquist's friends. He campaigned against the DOJ's secret evidence. His parents are really the trouble spot. They were prominent leaders in the Brotherhood front groups. At the annual award at ISNA, it is given every year in his father's name. The mosque, founded by his dad, hosted the Blind Sheikh just a couple of months before he bombed the World Trade Center. He has a network of terror-friendly organizations, and he made it possible for Osama bin Laden's number 2, al-Zawahiri, to actually covertly visit the United States undetected in 1995. He played a key role in founding CARE. He was praised by Al-Amoudi at an award ceremony. Watch this.
I'm really proud to be with Suhail Khan. Some of you saw him today in the White House, but inshallah soon you'll see him in better places in the White House, inshallah. Maybe sometimes as vice president soon, inshallah.
Okay, wouldn't that be great? So you remember, this is this guy praising this guy who was working at the White House because of Grover Norquist. I don't know what Grover's motivations are for working with people that range from Muslim Brotherhood sympathizer all the way to full-blown terrorists. It can only be one of two things. He is the most unlucky and naive guy next to the President of the United States. And I hope it's that, because the only other option is that he strongly agrees enough with the Muslim Brotherhood's mission, or they're just paying him enough cash to subvert America. Either way, somebody with this much power inside the Republican Party and inside the NRA with these connections is absolutely unacceptable. No person with any shred of integrity whatsoever would be within the same zip code of some of these people, let alone at the same office or exchanging money with them. And so far, the explanations given for the connections are completely unacceptable as well. So, next we're going to go to the groups that these guys have founded. Who are these people? What have they founded? And is there any connection to the Muslim Brotherhood? Are they trying to secretly destroy civilization in America? Back in a minute.
I think it's important to look at the relationships Grover Norquist has, because he has actually admitted that he has opened doors with the Republican members of Congress and the Senate in particular for what he refers to as senior Muslim leaders. They're all tied with the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. The Al-Amoudi connection is what really jumped out with me. Mr. Al-Amoudi actually gave or loaned Grover Norquist a total of about $20,000 to launch a project called the Islamic Free Market Initiative. Al-Amoudi has been very active in the North American Muslim Brotherhood. Mr. Al-Amoudi was also the founder, is known as the founder of the Muslim chaplain program within the Department of Defense. To have somebody who is connected with terrorism, connected with the Department of Defense, who's literally in prison right now, and to have him tied early on with Grover Norquist in a material way, that was the biggest red flag.
We just received an email. No conservative should have to pay Glenn Beck to hear a grown-up response to Frank Gaffney's nonsense. 2 weeks ago, March 11th, Glenn had Frank Gaffney on his radio show for a lengthy interview in front of an audience of 7 million Americans. It's actually 8. Uncritically accepting Gaffney's 10 to 15-year-old nonsense, Glenn kept saying over and over, Grover was a dangerous and bad man. On the free public airwaves in front of 7 million people, 8, Glenn repeated Gaffney's long discredited nonsense over the course of several shows, never checking anything. Absolutely untrue. Never reaching out to us for a reality check. Absolutely untrue. And then, after repeating stuff from Gaffney over and over the public airwaves, you invite Grover to a paid subscription-only show with a different, much smaller audience. If you are now interested in the facts that dozens of reporters and most conservative leaders already know, the best way would to proceed to hash through Gaffney's attacks in front of the audience, where Glenn gave Gaffney plenty of time to present them. If you're serious about doing fact-checking of this material, contact me in a time to find a time to do something on the radio show, the same venue where Gaffney told his conspiracy theory. So, after a week of many emails, including the one that came in earlier, I think this morning, got it, Tiffany, would it be possible to get a transcript of Wednesday's 1-hour Grover special? It would help with focus. And one that went out this afternoon reminding him that we can arrange transportation for the interview time tomorrow, and the one that went out 2 days ago that talked about we will examine the concerns. This one went out at 11 on March 24th. Is that today? Yesterday at 11 o'clock in the morning. Grover and Beck will air the full hour without any additional guests on Glenn's TV show. Great, that'll work. Confirming the taping time on this end. Blah, 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 blah. Grover, and I knew this would happen, has no interest in coming on the show now. Grover, if you're not man enough to look another man in the eye, and by the way, if you have a problem with it being paid, I will make this episode free. It was my intent to do so in rerun anyway, so it will be free tomorrow to anybody who wants to see your response. Believe me, the listeners on the radio would love to look you in the eye to see if you can help us with some of this. For instance, we've seen the power that he has. We've seen the groups that he's done. We see the people that he trusts, right? We have seen that he has worked with, funded, and crossed paths with these people, and they have crossed paths with him. He is the outreach to the Muslim community. But now let me show you where their paths have intersected, because it's a Soros-esque tangled web of front groups and organizations. But they share one thing in common, the core values of the Muslim Brotherhood. In 1998, Norquist funded the Islamic Institute. He said the group wasn't political and instead promoted the beliefs of the Quran's teachings that don't conflict with a free society. I don't know how many Islamic women would agree with that claim, but it's a noble goal. Great. He had financial help starting this up from a convicted Islamic terrorist, Al-Moody. There's the copy of the check. The convicted terrorist gave him $20,000 to get the Islamic Institute up and running. The Islamic Institute's president and co-founder, the right-hand man for Al-Moody, the co-founder. It was this group that organized the rally against Israel and the Israeli aggression. They protested in front of the White House. So it was this group that funded this, where they were recorded loudly voicing support for Hamas and Hezbollah, both designated terrorist organizations. Months after Al-Moody said that, we're all supporters of Hamas across the street from the White House, Norquist went to work right away. He facilitated a high-level meeting with Al-Moody with George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Funding began to pour in, mostly from overseas. 80% of that funding for his organizations comes from countries like Qatar. It was funneled around between all the shell groups, and the government was zeroing in with something called Operation Green Quest, which was designated to find and put a stop to overseas terror financing. Norquist lobbied hard to have the operation shut down. He was unsuccessful. Norquist Group accepted $20,000 from the now-defunct SAR, which was shut down because it raised and laundered money for Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It was also funded by another front group, SAFA. Norquist helped steer SAFA funding to GOP candidates and elected officials. But SAFA was also raided in 2002 under suspicion of being financially aiding the terrorists. Norquist was also the founder of Janus Merit Strategies. One of his clients, Al-Amoudi, who paid $40,000 for representation. Now, Norquist, we know, denies this claim, saying it was a housekeeping slip-up. You know, it was a guy named this guy, not this guy. This guy was later named in a search warrant affidavit as the director of a group entities controlled by individuals who have shown support for terrorist or terrorist fronts. Now, again, like I said, either Norquist has the worst luck ever, or there's a pattern here. Why are there so many people with ties to terrorism doing business with him? Another connection, Sami al-Arian, who, as you recall, convicted of providing material support to Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Norquist played a key role in arranging meetings, introducing power players to Sami al-Arian, including George W. Bush. Norquist and al-Arian worked together to fight the administration on the use of secret evidence. Al-Arian visited Norquist's office in 2002, a meeting they now dismiss as just trading literature. And who doesn't do that? People stop by all the time, and they'll give me something from the Bronte sisters or some Twain. It happens all the time. I understand that. Norquist also received an award from al-Arian himself for being a champion to fight against the use of secret evidence. Suhail Khan is an officer at the Islamic Institute, spoke at ISNA alongside Jamal, whatever his name is. Khan now denies everything, even the existence of the Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S., and this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more. I just want to show you, this is what these guys have started. Crossroads Center to Protect Patient Rights is the Koch brothers. Do they have any Muslim Brotherhood ties? Nope and nope. Al-Amoudi, the founding member of American Muslim Council, American Muslim Foundation, and Islamic Society of Boston. Ties to Muslim Brotherhood? Yes, yes, yes. Khalid Safuri was on the part of Department of American Muslim Council and the Free Market Islamic Society. We'll come back to that because he was the co-founder of Grover Norquist Group. We'll come back. Is there any ties to the American Muslim Council? Yes, to the Muslim Brotherhood. Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a front group for the Muslim Brotherhood. A member of the Muslim Brotherhood, so I'd say that's probably connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. Founding member, the last guy here, Jamal al-Barzinski, or whatever his name is, it was a founding member of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood. Also ISNA, Muslim Student Association, Muslim American Society, and IIIT, all of them front groups. So, is the Islamic Institute a front group for the Muslim Brotherhood? Seeing that all of these guys, including one of the founding members, is a part of other front groups, I would have to say the Free Market Islamic Institute probably is a front group for the Muslim Brotherhood. But you'll have to decide. I don't think Crossroads is, and I don't think the Koch brothers are. These guys are definitely involved. Is he? Boy, if he's not, he should probably check everything because all of the people involved with it are. This alone should warrant a straight answer. Maybe that's why Grover has just denied coming on the show, even though he said yesterday and the day before and even earlier today that he would be here. How could you possibly be mixed up with so many radical extremists whose mission is to subvert the United States of America and fund Islamic Jihad? I'm not claiming that he's a secret Muslim. I'm not claiming that he wants to destroy America. All I'm claiming are the facts. This is who he is. This is what he's founded. He's founded it with the help of these people. They're connected to these groups. These groups are connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. That's what I'm claiming. The most despicable human beings on the planet, like Al-Amoudi, seems to be a pattern. How would he explain that? So far, all we've seen is mudslinging and attempts to make it personal. They will start calling me a racist on this. Now, I've seen a list of his friends. I want to show you a list of my friends. And this is the one thing that I can't get past. These are the people that I believe, and I know personally, and I may not agree with everything that they say, But all of these people are my friends. And all of these people have said, he's very dangerous because these connections are real, and the connections to the Muslim Brotherhood are real. Who are they? Former director of the CIA, incredibly credible man, James Woolsey. Michelle Malkin, you know her. General Boykin, one of the most honorable men I know. Eric Steckelbeck, Patrick Poole, David Horowitz. This guy's got radar like nobody else. Frank Gaffney, sure, conspiracy theorist or former assistant, what was he, deputy of the Defense Department. Kind of a big deal. Joe Smits, this guy was the Inspector General of the Defense Department. These are not quacks or wacko birds. These are credible men, and there are credible women, and there are people who have called me, who have talked to me, who I have reached out to because I knew that they knew Grover. They've said, because he wields enormous power, please do not put my name on the chalkboard, but please do this show. You have to decide. Do you trust the people he trusts, or do you trust the people I trust? Back in a minute.
I got to know Grover in the mid-1990s. He approached me because I had just established the Foundation for Democracy in Iran. He was starting to get interested in that part of the world. I learned a number of years later, around 2000, 2001, that one of his top aides, a guy named Khalid Safuri, had been in Bosnia in the mid-1990s, working for a group that had subsequently been identified as an al-Qaeda front organization. So I took that to Grover and I said, hey, you know, Grover, there's something you might want to know in case you're not aware of it. And instead of listening or even responding, he just blew up, called me a racist, a bigot, an Islamophobe, and frankly, it was quite shocking behavior. He was never able to dispute the facts, never did dispute the facts. Anybody who criticizes political Islam, in his view, is an Islamophobe. That is simply wrong. People need to understand the distinction between political Islam and Islam or Muslims in general. Americans need to understand that people like Grover do not, and he's promoting a falsehood. He's promoting a lie.
Patrick Poole is a national security and terrorism expert for PJ Media. He was going to be on the program with us tomorrow. I think you are going to be. We're going to have to fly some more people in to try to look into Grover a little bit more. He's not going to take us up to answer these questions, but that's not really a surprise, is it?
Not really. These are hard questions to respond to, and he wants to make this as some kind of personal thing between he and Frank Gaffney, but everything you've been talking about is stuff that we've gone back to the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post,
right.
Even left-leaning publications like The Nation,
we've
like
done
the
the
National Journal, and it's all there for anybody who wants to look.
Yeah. So tell me what the most important thing is that, I mean, I know I went at light speed and I was giving a third grade version of what, you know, others have done a lot of work on. But tell me the most important thing out of all of this.
Two things. First off, these are all seriously nasty characters. Whether it's Abdurrahman Al-Amoudi, who sits in federal prison tonight, or Sami Al-Arian, who just last month was deported by the Obama administration.
That's saying something. You're deported by the Obama administration. You've got to be seriously bad. And
then you have Khalid Safuri, who was Al-Amoudi's deputy. And in fact, when he worked for Al-Amoudi, Safuri's deputy was none other than Randall Ismail Royer, who's also currently in prison on terrorism charges.
Okay, I'm guessing, but I would guess that if Grover would ever get past it's a conspiracy or it's just, you're just a racist, that's the way he's always answered these things, he would just say, I didn't really know them. It'd be like, Barack Obama with what's his name, the Weather Underground guy.
Yeah, Bill Ayers.
Bill Ayers.
I
met him once, really, and that's kind of the thing. But there is evidence that he was in business with these people.
Yes, absolutely. And we have copies of the checks. We have copies of the lobbying disclosure forms where Grover and his companies, Janus Merit Strategies, were going on the Hill and representing these people. We see him making introductions.
Explain this, because I think this is really important. The reason why Grover is so important is because he will put people next to the president to get their photo taken with the president or the head of the Department of Justice. Absolutely. Or Homeland Security, and explain why that's important.
Well, I said earlier, two things. These are nasty characters. The second thing why I think he's so dangerous is he's giving them legitimacy. He's given them access. We have pictures that he helped arrange of Al-Moody with President Bush. By the way, we can be bipartisan here. We have pictures of Al-Moody with Al Gore, Bill Clinton, and Hillary Clinton, by the way.
And the only one that did that was Grover Norquist.
And in particular, with the pictures that we have at the Strawberry Festival in Tampa with George and Laura Bush and Sammy Al-Arian and his family, that was entirely orchestrated by Grover Norquist.
So they can take those, and if I'm not mistaken, in Al-Moody's trial, was it Al-Moody or no?
Al-Arian, yeah.
He said, "How could I be this bad a guy? Look, I'm with Newt Gingrich and I'm with George and Laura Bush, right?"
Absolutely, and his attorney actually filed information and subpoena requests saying, I want information about my meetings with Denny Hastert that Grover Norquist arranged for me, with various other FBI director, etc. And he made the case in court. I can't be a terrorist. Here I was meeting with all these high-ranking officials, and
all orchestrated by Grover Norquist.
All by Grover.
Okay, back in just a second.
The Muslim Brotherhood has been wildly successful in its plan to become part of America's civil culture and to infiltrate the institutions of America's civil governments, including the White House, and both political parties, and the conservative movement as well. Suhail Khan is the proud son of Mahbub Khan and his protege, as he is also the protege of the convicted terrorist Abdurrahman Al-Moody, sponsored by his longtime patron, Grover Norquist, who has been a pillar of the conservative movement. Suhail Khan was given a White House appointment in the Bush administration and facilitated Al-Moody's access to the president. Over the last 10 years, the influence of the Brotherhood has spread throughout our government. There is nothing new in this sad reality. In 1938, Whittaker Chambers attempted to warn President Roosevelt that one of his White House advisors, Alger Hiss, was a Soviet agent.
Whittaker Chambers, confessed ex-communist, has sworn under oath that Alger Hiss, former high State Department officer, was a Red.
Mr. Hiss represents the concealed enemy against which we are all fighting.
When Roosevelt was giving Chambers information, he laughed and disregarded it. Alger Hiss remained as the president's advisor until Richard Nixon and the House Un-American Activities Committee flushed him out.
Okay. Patrick, I want to talk about, because the NRA is now doing an investigation in Grover, and he is on the board of directors. And I've said I may leave the NRA if he remains on the board, and I'm not sure if that's the smart thing to do or to stay in the NRA and help correct it from the inside. Once you're out, you're out. I'm not sure yet. But they say that, he only has, he's one of 75 council members. But you've seen Grover Norquist on the board of CPAC.
Right, and these positions give him legitimacy and cover for these kinds of activities. We saw with CPAC, where Grover and Suhail Khan, who was also on the ACU board, were able to lock out conservatives from being able to present issues. There were several years where national security wasn't even discussed at CPAC, or it was given some marginal role. And Suhail would bring in all kinds of nasty characters for his conservative inclusion seminar, which included Muhammad Ali Biari, which we covered in Rumors of War 3 and several of the other Blaze productions, and the Department of Homeland Security just gave him the boot because his tweets were being used by ISIS to recruit new fighters. And these were the kinds of people that Suhail and Grover were bringing into CPAC, and again, giving them cover. Well, I can't be an extremist. Here I am speaking at CPAC. I can't be associating with terrorists because here I am on the board of the National Rifle Association. That's the problem.
So what should people do?
Well, I think what you've been doing is look at the facts. You know, don't Grover's bluster about this is some personal vendetta with Frank Gaffney.
That's why we haven't brought Frank on, and that's why I'm not using Frank's stuff, because Frank
the facts are there.
The facts are there. You don't have to make it about Frank.
And we've gone back to the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Times, all these other publications, establishment media publications, who've made this. You know, back when Bush was in office, and they wanted to use this to attack Bush, but they reported on it at the time. I mean, we're presenting absolutely nothing here. We've got copies of the checks. We've got copies of the lobbying disclosures.
Yeah, where he was lobbying for these
characters. Yeah. Yes. And Alamoudi and Barzinji. Barzinji was the guy that the money man that they were using to give money to Republican candidates to basically bring them in. Ken Cuccinelli, who was the Virginia GOP candidate this last cycle, was hurt because of some of those associations with Barzinji and others.
Okay. Patrick, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for your help this week, and thank you for your help tonight. We still have an invitation open to Grover Norquist. I'll make the episode for free, but I'd like to look the man in the eye and hear his answers on this. Until then, you decide. Back in just a minute.